All right, guns up, Raiders, former Raiders, never Raiders. I'm going to do a video real quick for our Southwest League, for the Fantasy League. Right now, definitively, we are standing at 10 participants. So we need to discuss as a league what we want to do with that. So essentially, what would happen if we roll with 10? Basically, the two teams that are non-existent at this point, their keeper would essentially go back into the draft pool. Now, some of you may be a big fan of that, and I'm on the fence on it. I'm going to tell you a couple of reasons why I would rather expand back to 12 and try to bring in a couple more guys, or ladies for that matter. One, if we lost anybody else, we really couldn't run with 8. I mean, that would be nuts to try to run a league with 8 or 9 or whatever, and I don't want to go there. Not to mention the fact it also lowers the payout. Now, I had somebody that mentioned to me, they said, well, why don't we just raise the buy-in fee? Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that, because while some of us might say, yeah, I can afford kicking in an extra $5, that's true. Some of us not so much. I know there's even a couple of people that said 20 is their limit anyway. That had told me that a year or two ago when they joined the league. That said, also, I know at least 4 guys have already kicked in their money for the year, so I don't want to have to go back to that person and say, well, give me another $5, and I'll hold on to that, and at the end of the year we'll award that to the champion. So I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of reducing the league. I know, I'm not going to say who, because I don't want to tip off what anybody's thinking, but I know at least 2 people have told me, yeah, I would rather roll with 10. In my personal opinion, if half the league is saying 10 and half the league is saying 12, I would rather try to add 2 more people. I know that Drew has already told me that he knows of one guy that has asked him and was interested in joining the league. If that's the case, I mean, that gives us at least 1 more, and I know 1 more person at work has mentioned that they would be interested, but they weren't 100% because they weren't used to playing in this type of league. So that's something that we need to talk about. You can do one of 2 things. Everybody that's in the league has my cell phone number. You can text me, and you can say, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we should go with 10, or I'm thinking that we should have 12, or you may even say, hey, I know a guy. I got somebody that's been asking me, and they want to jump in a keeper league. And if that's the case, then great. I mean, if we're going to stick with 12, then by all means. On the draft thing, on the selection, what would happen is if, let's say, Technicians, who's out, they have the number 1 pick, then basically number 2, which would be Josh, moves up to number 1, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So in theory, everybody would move up 1 spot. I think 1 and 5 are the spots that are in question right now. It would also put in, I believe, Julio Jones, A.J. Green, Le'Veon Bell, Drew Brees, players like that back into the draft pool, in case somebody was wondering, and that's what you're going to use to base your decision-making on what you think. But we need to go ahead and come up with a decision now, because if we're going to get somebody in the league for this year in time for draft day, then I say that we go ahead and try to make a decision. So either leave me a comment on the video, but preferably text me. If we want to discuss it as a league, I think probably the comments section might wind up being the best place for us to do that as a league, so we can physically see what each person is thinking and saying and what their concerns are about either 12 or 10 teams. So that's all I got to say about that. The other thing, we need to talk about a draft day. I'm thinking that 3rd week of the preseason might be good, because here's the thing. A lot of us in this league work in residence life. We've got opening weekend for most of us on the 20th. That's going to be a weekend that nobody can do a draft. I mean, we got to be realistic about that. We're all working nonstop, Saturday and that Sunday all day. The following weekend is Labor Day weekend. And so, like last year, we took into consideration that many of us would like to take a vacation and may be out of town, and they may make it difficult for you to be able to access the website and do your draft from your phone or remotely. You may even be somewhere. I know Some of us take trips to upper Minnesota or something, go ice fishing or whatever. I don't know if you ice fish in August, even in Minnesota, but you get what I'm saying. You may be in a very rural area and you're not able to get any signal, and you go, okay, how am I going to make my selections? Nobody wants to auto draft. And I don't want anybody auto drafting. I've said that before. I'm going to redo like what I did last year. I'm going to invite people that are in town. If you happen to be in town that weekend and you want to come over to the house, that we're drafting, let's come over to the house and draft. Bring your computer, do it, your device, your tablet, whatever you're going to draft on, and you can log on to my Wi-Fi and we'll draft. Who knows? We might even bring some food or cook some food or something. That'd be okay too. That said, I'm thinking like the 26th or the 27th. So of August, I'm talking about. That's the third week of the preseason. So when we look at that, when we look at the calendar, the 26th is a Saturday, the 27th is a Sunday. Now we got some people in the league that they go to church or whatever on Sunday. Some people just want their Saturday to do whatever, go to the lake, whatever you want to do. That's fine. Y'all tell me. Again, that's another thing. What works best for you? Now, it may be so far in the future, you may be saying either or. I'm thinking a mid-afternoon thing, like 2 p.m. Personally, I wouldn't mind doing it that Saturday. Would be just fine with me. That Sunday's fine with me, too. I'm flexible. I don't really care. So, but I like the mid-afternoon, the 2 o'clock thing, because y'all know it takes about an hour to 2 hours for us to complete our draft. That gets us done before the evening, So y'all let me know. Let me know what you're thinking. You can text me that. We can discuss it in the comments again if you want to do that. And we'll go ahead and make a decision. Right now on the website, I've got I think I've got the draft set for the 26th at 2 o'clock. Obviously, I can go in and change that. That's tentative. The other thing I would encourage y'all to do, if you haven't already got your money in, let's try to get it in. I'd like to have that in before draft day, so that way we know we've got everybody bought in. I can account for it. I'm going to do like I've always done. I am a stickler for making sure whoever wins, they get their money as fast as possible. So if you're out of town, I'm going to mail it to you. The minute that we know that your game is final and over and you've won the league, I'm putting the check in the mail for $240, or in this case, if we go with 10 teams this year, $200 is what it'll be. That said, I think at the moment that's all the league business that we need to focus on. Now, if somebody wants to suggest some rule changes, by all means, suggest them. We'll look at it. We'll talk about it as a league. Again, that's something else that we can talk about in the comments section as a whole. With that said, I don't have much other league business. I'm just curious if anybody's been following football season and the drama. I think it looks like Ezekiel Elliott might get suspended for a couple of weeks. That's still up in the air. I saw that happening when they started talking about the sexual assault stuff, and then him down in New Orleans at Mardi Gras ripping that girl's shirt off and all of that. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm not confident making this guy my keeper. When I've got a guy like David Johnson, who is every bit as good, if not better, of a football player, I'm sticking with David Johnson. Now, David Johnson may go down in week 3 of the preseason right before we have our draft, and by God, I'm switching it back to Zeke. That's the cool thing about having a keeper. It doesn't lock until the day of our draft. So go ahead and set your keeper. You can always come in and change it later. And I would recommend that you do that now, so that way you can kind of game plan. So when you're mock drafting, you already know who's not in the pool. Now, I can tell you right now, David Johnson's not in the pool. I can guarantee you, I'm not speaking for anybody, but Packerbacker will obviously be keeping Aaron Rodgers. That went without saying, right? How do you have a team called Packerbacker and you don't keep Aaron Rodgers? That would almost be blasphemy right there. So those are two guys we know are going to be off the market. So when you're doing your mock drafts, if you do it on NFL or ESPN, it's tough for you to mock our league. What I like to do, and I'm just giving you a little hint here on something you can try if you want to. It takes a little more work, but it's a little more authentic. I try to set up like an Excel spreadsheet, and I just take out the players that I know are already gone, they're already kept, and then based on the rotational order, I look at it and I say, who do I reasonably think? Like, okay, if Stephon is drafting at 6, Who do I reasonably think he would be taking if he's keeping Antonio Brown? And so if he's got Brown, does he want to double up on receivers? I'm looking at what's available. And that's how I kind of work my mock drafts to get my game plan taken care of. Some of you may say, I don't want to put this kind of work into this thing, and you very well may not. You may want to just play chance. That's your business. That's your decision. I don't think you're going to be as successful, if you don't game plan than if you did. I think you're going to have a better chance. Now, sometimes people make crazy decisions. I was in a league a few years ago where a guy, third pick, not round 3, not his third pick, the third pick, Darren Sproles. And it was like, dude, and this was the second year he was in Philadelphia or something. You're like playing behind DeMarco Murray. Darren Sproles at 3, really? That's a hell of a curveball. And it's a stupid pick. That's idiotic. When you know a guy, even if you think a guy is going to have a good year, when you know he's going to be there in round 2, round 3, round 5, round 10, whatever, don't reach on the guy. It's your business if you do, and I'm glad you do it. I hope everybody in the league drafts a kicker in the first round except for me. That way I can get Ezekiel Elliott and David Johnson again and have that tandem. If y'all want to draft your kickers in round 1, be my guest. If you want to draft a quarterback or whatever, be my guest. Do whatever you think is best for your team. But I'm just telling you, if you game plan, you're going to have a more successful season. People throw you curveballs, and you can't game plan for that. But at least gives you an idea of who you have on your board, and you have a general clue of who would I draft in what round. Am I looking at receivers, in rounds 1 and 2, or am I looking at those in rounds 3 through 7, or whatever your case is? You'll base that on who your keeper is. If you've got a great quarterback, you don't need to be taking a quarterback in rounds 1, 2, 3, round 10 even, quite frankly, if you're keeping a great quarterback. Get your backup. You're getting that guy for 1 week, hopefully, as long as your guy doesn't go down. So that's a little piece of advice from the commish that I would tell you. Something else I've seen, pay attention, like I say, these pending suspensions. Pay attention to these injuries that are already going on. Pay attention to guys that are on free agency that may pick up on a team. D'Angelo Williams is one. The guy in 2 years, backing up Le'Veon Bell, I think had 17 touchdowns for Pittsburgh. That's a lot. That's a lot for a starter in 2 seasons. And I'm shocked he's not on a roster right now. If anybody has noticed, he actually told 4 teams publicly not to call him. It was the Browns and the Jaguars. And he said that that was a competition issue. He didn't want to play for teams that crappy. He also told Dallas not to call him because he hates the Cowboys, apparently, in real life, and grew up a 49ers fan, according to the article I read. But he told Carolina, don't call me. And I don't blame him. All of you that know me know I'm a Panthers fan. I've been a Panthers fan since day one. It's hard being a Panthers fan, dude. It is nothing but nonstop heartache. Vikings fans, y'all can probably relate to me on what I'm talking about here. When you feel like your franchise is snake bitten, you think every year we've got legs, we look good, we're going to go far, we're going to go deep in the playoffs, maybe even make the Super Bowl, and then you miss an absurd field goal. Or for God's sakes, during the Super Bowl, John Casey knocks a kickoff out of bounds and sets New England up on the friggin' 40, and they're able to march down into field goal territory, kick a field goal, and win the damn Super Bowl. If you can tell, that still stings. I've forgiven John Casey, but that still stings. Something I haven't forgiven the Panthers for is letting D'Angelo Williams go. I don't blame him for being mad at them still. I don't blame him for not wanting to go back there and saying, I don't like the things that they did. I don't like the things that they did to run me off, and I don't like the things that they're doing to some guys that I still know. So I can understand where he's coming from. I feel the same way about Louisiana Tech. I graduated from there twice. I worked there for 6 years. And y'all know that about me. But I don't have anything but animosity towards that school after working there. I don't like the way they treat my friends. I don't like the way they mistreat all their coworkers up there. It's a fine school to attend, but don't ever work there. So I have animosity towards it. I don't support them. I got called the other day. They wanted me to donate. I said, no thanks. I'll make my donations to the current institution in which I'm at. They didn't really like hearing that, but guess what? Get used to it, idiot. If you hadn't screwed me over and screwed over my friends, I'd probably donate money. So I don't blame D'Angelo Williams for feeling the way he feels. If you hadn't screwed me over, I might want to come back. I would even take a backup role to Jonathan Stewart, maybe even third wheel to Christian McCaffrey. And I love D'Angelo Williams. I'd love to see him come back, but don't blame him, not one bit. There's three guys that left Carolina that wound up with other teams that I have no animosity towards, and people will not have any problem guessing that about me. But if you haven't known me as long as some of the other guys, Jake Delhomme, Steve Smith, and D'Angelo Williams. And I don't blame any of them for harboring animosity. I know Delhomme doesn't, and he's said that. He's even come back to the organization in some capacity. I mean, he's been over there on the sidelines for games, hanging out with Jerry Richardson, and I think that's great. I hope they bring him back. I hope they retire number 17. I'd be all for it. I wish they'd retire Jordan Gross's number, maybe even Chris Gamble's number. All those are great guys. Mike Rucker, Mike Minter, guys that retired Panthers. I think that was awesome. Although in Gamble and Gross's case, it was, we're not going to re-sign you. You're welcome to go elsewhere. And they said, no, I don't want to play for anybody but Carolina. I'll just retire, even though I think I still got some gas in the tank. And they both probably certainly did. But no, I'd love to see them retire those guys' numbers. I'd be all for it. But be that as it may, guys, that's all I really got to talk about tonight. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for being in the league. I'm looking forward to another great year. I'm really excited about it. So just quick recap. We need to talk about the 10 versus 12 thing, and we need to talk about the date. Do we want to do the 26th of August? Do we want to do the 27th? Do you care? Do you want me just to pick a date and tell you guys when to be there? But seriously, no auto drafts this year, guys, and let's stay in the draft the whole way. Last year was a weird thing when we had that deal where the website just crashed. I guess a lot of people were doing their drafts that week, and fortunately we made it to round 13, I think, before that happened. And I hope that we were able to manage that well with what we did, where when your pick would come up, you could just text me who you wanted, and I would take them off the list and then added them to your team later. So, that's certainly something as a commissioner that I have to do and I have to be aware of. That was completely beyond my control, unfortunately. I'm not NFL's IT guy. And if y'all remember, that website even really screwed me for 2 weeks. I'm never going to get over that. Points-wise, I would have won the league last year, but I am not going to walk around saying I'm the real champion, because Drew is the real champion. He won the league. If I'd won other games, that wouldn't have been a factor anyway. I wouldn't have been 8-6, or 7-7 rather, I should say. I wouldn't have had to try for those tiebreakers or anything like that. So, congratulations to Drew. I'm glad the guy won it. I think it was his first championship in the fantasy league. I'm happy for him. So he's in my division, and I'm hoping to win that thing this year, and hopefully we'll beat the crap out of him both times that I play the guy this year. No offense. I'm sure he feels the same way about me. So that's it, guys. Thanks for playing. Looking forward to a great year. I'll see you in the draft, so let me know what you think.